Studios. This is your Wheeling No Two Ways About It with your hosts, Wheeling Mayor Glenn Elliott and Vice Mayor Chad Ballman.
All right, you're listening to Your Wheeling No Two Ways About It here on the Watchdog, 1600 AM, 98.1 FM. We'll be talking all things Wheeling. Feel free to call or text in, 304-214-1600. I believe Councilman Jerry Slavinakis from Ward 4 will be calling in here soon. And then after the 12:30 break, City Manager Bob Herron will be joining us in the studio. But Mayor, how you doing?
I'm doing all right there, Mr. Vice Mayor. 66 degrees outside, a high of 68 today. What's not to like about that? We've had a long and cold winter. I think we're all excited about that. So, yeah. Things are looking up.
Spring's on its way. But Mayor, I want to ask you a question. I picked up my phone Sunday morning, as I do most mornings, and I'm looking at the news, and I see that the newspaper had a story on their Facebook page or online, and it was about the High Valley losing population. Now, this is a story they do about twice a year. I think population has been decreasing around here since roughly the 1940s, but nonetheless, the newspaper covers this about twice a year, does a story on it, and usually the newspaper asks, myself and or yourself for comment. I knew they didn't ask me for a comment on this story, but it's something along the lines of, what are you doing to stop the population decline? As mayor, as vice mayor, as city council, what are you guys doing to turn around the population decline? So I'm used to commenting on these stories, but they didn't ask me for a comment, so I figured they must have asked the mayor for a comment. And I'm reading the article, and I'm looking forward to, one of your 17-paragraph long thesis-type comments on what we're doing to stop the population decline that's been taking place probably since the 1940s, wherever it is. But unfortunately, I get to a sentence and it says, Mayor Elliott, something along the lines of, Mayor Elliott did not immediately respond to comment for this story. And, Mayor, why aren't you responding to the newspaper? Why are you being mean to them?
Well, 99% of the time when I get a text from our friends at the newspaper or a call, I do respond promptly. This particular call came in at 9:58 p.m. on Saturday night, and as I texted our good friend John McCabe from the newspaper on Sunday morning, I was currently watching a movie with my wife. I've only been married for about 5 months now, but I've learned enough during that 5 months that you don't interrupt movie night with your wife to return a text from the newspaper. So I did not.
Wait, so what time did you receive this text?
I think it was 9:58 p.m. But I was up. And
so our friend at the newspaper texted you almost 10 o'clock at night, wanting a response for the next morning. Doesn't mean that you're almost 50 years old. I thought, it's 10 o'clock on a Saturday, man. Well, the newspaper should understand that. That's probably your bedtime. I don't know
what my age has to do with it. That's a personal thing.
Some of the younger guys on city council, 10 o'clock on Saturday, they might be running around town getting themselves into trouble. But 10 o'clock on a Saturday, I would expect you to be in bed. Your age. I think your curfew
I was wondering where you were going with this. I was wondering that this joke is going to be at my expense. I thought we were having some fun with the friends of the newspaper. But yes, I didn't respond to that story on Saturday night, but it's not that I didn't want to. I normally do respond to whatever story that they ask about, whether or not I think it's an important story or not. And population decline is something that our valley's seen really since every year since 1938. So we have to do something to change that. And I think currently we are situated to make a big difference in that regard. Maybe not this year, next year, or the year after, but I think it takes time. Right now, I don't want to get into the subject, but I'm going to. Our population is skewed very old right now. We're about nearly a decade older than the national median age, a result of which means that, even if we do see more people moving here and staying here, we're going to have more deaths than births, just based on basic demography. We're going to have more people dying than we're going to have being born because we have more people at the age where they're not actually having kids, but they're, older. Over time, that will change, and as we keep more young folks here, they're going to start having kids here, and I think our population is going to start to grow at some point. But it is something that every mayor going back to the 1930s has had to deal with. I'm sure questions like this: why are we losing population? And I think we have Jerry on the phone. I see Lola waving the phone, and we don't want to keep our distinguished Ward 4 Councilman Jerry Slavinakis waiting.
Jerry, how you doing?
Good afternoon, gentlemen. How are you?
Oh, we're doing good. Well, it's nice to hear from you, Jerry.
I appreciate you fine gentlemen allowing me the opportunity to be on your show.
Well, Jerry, I say this all the time about you. You, of all the members on council, you are my absolute favorite current Ward 4 member of City Council.
You know what, Chad? You're just so smart. I mean, you really are. I mean, your wit is beyond compare.
I
It
detect
is.
a little sarcasm in your voice, Jerry, but you might not be my current favorite wordful member of council now. I don't know.
Well, maybe I'll be a close second then.
Wow.
But anyway,
So
I
much love.
appreciate you guys letting me get on the phone or on the radio. The reason why I wanted to get on today was just not to steal your thunder, because I know you guys are going to have another great show like you always do, but it's because there's a lot of progress going on in the city. And one of the things that I'm sure you guys are going to talk about is the detour from I-70 East. And what that's doing is causing people to take a national road east, which is a wonderful sign of progress. And unfortunately, it's causing a little bit of a backup. So what I wanted to do is just remind everyone that when you're taking that national road heading east and you go past Med Express on your right towards Perkins, on your right-hand side there is the I-70 West entrance ramp. And a lot of times, especially during the morning and afternoon commutes, especially when it's right before school starts, or not starts, lets out, and during that time, it's very difficult for people that are traveling west on National Road to make that left-hand turn onto I-70 West to go towards the tunnels. And a lot of people do stop and let people go, and I just want to thank everyone for doing that, and just want to remind people that when you're taking the detour and you're on National Road heading east, which will be towards Perkins, please be courteous and allow people to make that left-hand turn. It seems to me that a lot of people that are that are heading east, which is again going from, say, Generations towards Perkins, the ones that are on the far right-hand lane, they normally stop to let people, but the problem is the people that are closest to the double yellow line, they don't really stop. And I don't want anyone to get into an accident. And I've seen a few close calls. We've also noticed that the traffic going west is starting to back up. So it's just a little, public service announcement that I'd like to get out there so that we could continue along with traveling Route 40 in a safe manner. You guys go there?
Jerry, I think we were both so impressed with your description that I left us speechless. But no, I think that's a very good recommendation. I know exactly the situation you're talking about because I've been stuck there trying to make that left turn as well. So I think it's a very good point. And I think, look, if you're mad because we don't have you on the show enough, we'll get you booked next week right now.
Jerry, I think this should be an ongoing segment where every week you call in and give some traffic updates. I think a lot of people know the interstate's going to be, there's going to be some work taking place on the interstate over the next year. The downtown streetscape project's going to hopefully be starting this summer. Right now, I know they're tearing up part of downtown to replace a water line that dates back to the 1800s. But I think this is going to be a new segment. If you want to call in every week, kind of give a traffic update, I think the listeners will really appreciate that.
Hey,
it's nice to hear from you, Jerry.
Anything I can do to help you too, I'm there. All right, you've all been responsive to any and all questions I've had. So it's the least I could do.
All right, you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. You heard it. So Jerry Sklavonaka's first edition of Traffic with Jerry. It's going to be at 12:15 weekly on Wednesday here on the Watchdog on the
Traffic with Jerry.
It's Traffic with Jerry. Well,
I like it. The sarcasm was dripping through that comment, and I appreciate it.
No, but it's an important point. One of the other changes we made on the eastbound direction there was to request DOH to make that right turn in front of Perkins a right-only lane, because that was actually further backing people up as well there. When some folks were in the going straight in that right lane, it was causing even more of a backup. So, that's...
Well, yeah. And I can tell you, and the problem is not really the right-hand lane. It's mostly the left-hand lane as you're going from Med Express to Perkins. Most of the time, the people in the right-hand lane that are going to be making the right to go back onto I-70 East, they normally stop and allow people. But what happens, and I've seen it numerous times, is that the people on going east but are in the lane closest to the double yellow line just keep blowing through. So And that's where I get concerned. I don't want an accident to happen, and I want us to continue to be courteous to each other. So I appreciate you guys giving me the time to just sort of throw this out here and make sure that we continue to do what's right.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Counselor. Be ready next week because we're gonna put you on the spot. We may just call you if you don't call us. So you'll be ready next week.
And you know what? As soon as they start that streetscape, I can't wait to start talking about it.
All right. We'll have you on. All right, Counselor. Thank you very much. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, Fourth Ward Councilman Jerry Sklavonakis with a very helpful tip, and I hope folks paid attention because, we are in the middle of a major I-70 sort of bridge rehab project now, and that's meant some detours. But all in all, based on what I expected to see, I think we've done a very good job as a city in dealing with the impact of losing one of our major arteries there through the city. We've dealt with the closure of the Fulton Bridge westbound. Now we're dealing with the closure of the Fulton Bridge eastbound, and that's going to be about another 9 or 10 months before it's done. But it could be a lot worse. Yes, what you need to do is to add a few minutes onto your ETA wherever you're going, and you just can't assume that same 9-10 minute distance to get anywhere in the city that it used to be. It sometimes might take you 15 minutes, but all in all, when that project's done, we'll talk a little bit about that project with the city manager here at the bottom of the hour break. But when that project is done, it's going to be great to see that interstate completely smooth, completely rebuilt all the way from Wheeling Island through Elm Grove.
And the streetscape project that's going to hopefully start this summer is another project I'm really excited about. As everybody that knows that drives through downtown, those streets desperately need to be repaved. But not only are they going to be repaved, but we're going to get new sidewalks, new traffic signals, new trees in downtown Wheeling. That's supposed to start this summer, and that's roughly going to be about a 2-year project. But Mayor, and I want to kind of touch on what we were talking about before Jerry called in and the population loss, and this is a story that the newspaper covers about twice a year. And what we normally say is that not only, of course, are we focusing on jobs, I think every city council across the country focuses on jobs, but one of the things that we try to do, starting 4.5 years ago, is kind of focus on quality of life. We've tried to improve the quality of life. A lot of people nowadays, they can work from home. I think the pandemic has kind of sped that up. So we try to make Wheeling a city where people want to live. We focused on rehabbing the playgrounds. We have a few more playgrounds that need to be replaced and fixed up. We focused on a lot of paving. I think this city council has invested in the last 4.5 years more money in paving than probably any other 4-year period in the history of the city of Wheeling. And we've also tried to focus on getting more people to live downtown. I think a lot of younger people, empty nesters, want to have more of an urban living, so the Wheeling Pit building is going to be rehabbed. Jeff Wood is going to build a brand new building right next to Marsh, the Marsh Stogie building, the north end of downtown that will be housing. We anticipate that at some point in time, Steve Kuhn, the same guy who's doing the Wheeling Pit building, will also rehab the Marsh building for downtown housing. Of course, the Bory lofts, I think, are sold out. The Stone building lofts are sold out. So getting more people living downtown is another thing we try to focus on. And then we've also been taking steps to reduce flooding after some of the hard rains. That's not something that's going to be solved overnight. We've taken steps to reduce the flooding, and over the next few years, I anticipate we'll be making even more investments in reducing flooding around town, particularly after hard rains.
Well, without a doubt, you're absolutely right. The quality of life is the name of the game for cities who are competing to attract and keep residents these days. And one of the reasons, I don't like to make this show always about the legislature during our January, February, March shows, but it seems like a lot of things going on in the legislature are not really focused on that quality of life angle to enough extent where I think it's going to make a difference. And we talked a little bit about this last week, but the income tax phase-out proposal, which is there, it sounds like it's going to really attract residents. It sounds like it's a way to make West Virginia more competitive. But the more I read about the proposal, the more I learn about how we're going to actually achieve that. Offset the revenue losses and or make cuts, the more concerns I have. To fully phase out the income tax, we're looking at almost a 2 percentage point increase in the sales tax, which would be about a 32% increase in the effective rate of the sales tax. Sales tax, anybody who's gone to take an Economics 101 class or studied sort of tax policy knows that sales taxes are regressive in their nature, so they tend to hit a lower income populations more severely, basically because lower income folks end up spending some or more or all of their income versus more wealthy folks who may invest, sort of have disposable income to invest. If you're living on the lower edges of the income strata, chances are you're going to spend all your money just to survive, which means you're going to spend most of your money and pay sales tax on it. So I don't really like the sales tax. We have a 1% sales tax here in Wheeling, of course, as a lot of cities in the state do, but the state sales tax itself is already at 6%. I don't think you want to go much higher than 7% anywhere in the state, so I'd be very, very concerned with that part of the proposal. But the other thing is just look, there was a U.S. News and World Report study that came out. I think every year it ranks all 50 states in the District of Columbia, and West Virginia ranked 47 this year as it did. I think that's the same it's ranked since 2019. If you read through the report, and let me find the URL of the report, whatever, but if you read through the report, a couple things popped out at me. Number one, we're ranked 50th in infrastructure for all states across the country. We're ranked 45th in education. Each of those things are really tied to that quality of life metric which you're talking about, Mr. Vice Mayor. And if our focus is just phasing out the income tax and actually cutting spending left, right, and sideways, and not actually addressing two of those gaping needs in education and infrastructure, to me, you're not going to make West Virginia more attractive for the types of workers that the 21st century economy is calling for. We only have, I think the percent of our state that's college educated is 29%. Well, if you want to attract tech workers and make West Virginia an IT hub going forward, you need to get that number up, and you're not going to do that by cutting things like the Promise Scholarship or otherwise. I think our friend Delegate Fluharty, I had an op-ed in today's paper about that. So I'm concerned with this proposal, not because I don't like new ideas, and I'm not someone who just says no to anything because it's change. I think that's one of the things you can fall victim to. But I just don't think, I think it's going at it backwards. I think we're already, if you look across the country, I think as a tax burden, our state is I think we're the 17th lowest tax burden any state has. So I don't think the income tax is the reason why people have been fleeing West Virginia consistently over the years. To me, it's a solution in search of a problem. I think we instead need to look at the actual problems, and that are, we need to continue investments in infrastructure. We've made some great strides on the roads front here, especially in Wheeling with the I-70s project. That's going to make a big difference, because for how many years driving through Wheeling on I-70, if all you saw Wheeling is what you did on I-70, all you saw was a city that looked like it was, dying. You saw potholes, you saw the, I don't know what the side barriers are called on the interstate highway bridges, but they were all crumbling. You saw actually on the bridge over Wheeling Island, you saw foliage growing up on the side of the bridge. And that was the impression that Wheeling for years had given you when you drove through it. And that's not good for quality of life. That's not good to say, hey, world, we're open for business. Come invest in West Virginia, come invest in Wheeling. So you have to do things like that on the infrastructure side. We have to make education more of a priority as a state to keep our people here, and coming up with more incentives to keep high school grads and college grads to stay here instead of seeking opportunities elsewhere. Off rant.
Okay. Well, before we take the 12:30 break, we're going to be joined by City Manager Bob Herron after the 12:30 break. But Mayor, I do want to give a very brief recap of last week's council meeting. We had a council meeting last Tuesday. On last Wednesday's show, we didn't have time to get to the council meeting, but the council meeting last week was relatively short, one of our shorter meetings, maybe lasted a half hour. There wasn't a whole lot on the agenda. There was really only two things that I think are worth mentioning. City Council did move forward with purchasing radio read meters for the water department. And this is something, I believe this is the fourth year in a row that we've done that. So basically what those are is, with the old-fashioned meter, the city employee actually has to come out and physically read the meter. These radio meters, the city employee can actually drive past your house, and these meters put off a radio signal, and as they're driving past your house, they have a computer or something in the car that actually reads your meter as they're driving past the house. One of the benefits here, obviously, it's a little bit more efficient for city staff to read the meters this way, but one of the benefits is since it takes less time, the households that have these radio meters get their meter read every single month. In the past, the old-fashioned meter, I believe city staff would come out to the house, once every other month, so you'd get an actual reading one month, and then the following month, it'd be an estimated reading. And that caused some fluctuations in people's readings. So the city's moving forward with these radio meters. I believe 7,000 of the city's 12,000 water customers already have these meters installed, so I anticipate over the next few years, city staff will be asking city council to continue to purchase more of these meters, and I anticipate we would be doing that. The other thing we did is we took one more step forward to demolishing the 19th Street property that the city acquired. There's some asbestos that needs to be removed and demolition that needs to take place. This is something we can speak to City Manager Bob Herron about after the 12:30 break. But this was a controversial project. I don't think it necessarily should have been controversial. I can think back to a headline, city to pay 10 times appraised value. We might call that fake news. The reality is the city did not pay 10 times the appraised value, but that headline, I think, sparked a lot of controversy, and I think still a lot of people around town think the city overpaid for that property due to that headline. The reality is the asking price was, I think, around $500,000. I think the city paid around $150,000, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
And when it's all said and done, there's going to be some environmental grants the city's going to get from the state of West Virginia to help with the demolition and the cleanup. So when it's all said and done, I think the city's going to have about $300,000 out of pocket and invested in that property. And we have an appraisal that says once it's a clean site, that site's going to be valued at around $400,000. So that's really a win in my mind. The city can get rid of an eyesore, can clean up that site for future development, have about $300,000 out of pocket, and the site's going to be worth $400,000. The city could walk away, selling that site at a potential profit, so the taxpayers would actually make money and have a clean site. That's the site that we talk about quality of life. People driving into Wheeling sits right on Route 2.
For so many years, when you're driving off Route 2 there and you come into downtown Wheeling, that building has welcomed you, and it's not a very good welcome. It looks, as I've joked before, like Dresden in 1944. It's missing many windows. It's in a state of complete disrepair. You can argue why it is that way and why it got that way, and if we go back and change things, I certainly would. But we identified that as a site that if the city could acquire that property, tear it down and position it for a sort of third-party development, it would make a lot of sense. It would clean up that area and just provide a better gateway visual coming into downtown Wheeling there from the south on Route 2. And as expected, we do have some third-party interest in that site once it's all torn down and once it's demolished. So I expect that we won't have any issue at the end of the day getting that site back to productive use. I think it was the right decision. The fact that council voted for it unanimously, I think, was a strong, because we had some folks who ran, if you remember, we had some folks who ran for council with some concerns about that project going into it, but then they ultimately voted for it at the end of the day when they realized the pros and cons of the project. And I think it's the right project for the city to do, and I'm glad we did it, but everything's not going to be popular.
No, we'll leave it at that.
As we have learned. I think we're going to take the bottom of the hour break, and when we come back, we'll be joined with City Manager Bob Herron here on The Watchdog.
The Metro News Update is brought to you by Thomas Auto Centers, Mall Road, St. Clairsville. Get the best deal at Thomas Auto Centers.
West Virginia Metro News, I'm Chris Lawrence. There was a long floor debate Tuesday in the state Senate over a measure dealing with the controversial topic of needle exchange. The bill would stiffen requirements for authorizing to run a needle exchange program anywhere in West Virginia, something Putnam County Senator Eric Tarr believes is necessary.
Somebody applies for a license to operate a needle exchange. First, the way this bill sets it up is that needle exchange program would have to be housed within a comprehensive harm reduction program, which has all those services.
And Tarr sponsored the bill and also an amendment requiring the county sheriff provide a letter of support for needle exchange in the county, but there was pushback from some who feel the bill puts obstacles in the way of harm reduction programs. Kanawha County Senator Richard Lindsay argued it puts the wrong people in charge.
Having the sheriff on top of the county commission, on top of whoever else, play a role with no medical background, and whether or not these programs exist or don't, that's not where we should go.
The bill passed 22-11, now goes to the House. There are 18 vaccination clinics in West Virginia happening today aimed at getting more West Virginians immunized against COVID-19. All of the shots are by appointment only, and appointments are being scheduled for those who have pre-registered at vaccinate.wv.gov. The governor's Wednesday COVID-19 briefing getting started this hour. You can see that at wvmetronews.com. Also, the governor's much talked about proposal aimed at eventually eliminating the state's income tax is now in bill form, introduced in the House. You're listening to Metro News, the voice of West Virginia. In Wayne County, floodwater last week caused significant damage at Dunlow Elementary School, and as a result, students can't go back to that school this academic year. Therefore, the Wayne County School Board has announced starting Monday, those Dunlow students will attend class at Cowboy State Forest. The classes will be held 5 days a week for the rest of the school year at the Forest Group Camp. School buses will run to that camp. House and Senate floor sessions are getting started this hour in Charleston at the legislature. From the Metro News Anchor Desk, I'm Chris Lawrence.
Over the years, you've brought opioids into your home. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them, just in case. But holding on to opioids puts your family at risk. Learn more at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
Storm Tracker 7 team is here to warn you when winter weather will affect your day.
And as we go through the overnight after our coating of snow, we'll wake up tomorrow morning with a few snow flurries.
We are also here to help you make the most of the season. Is it a good day to build a snowman? Should you take the kids sledding? Check out our app before you head out the door.
We're going to bottom out to temperatures in the upper 20s.
With meteorologists Dr. Dave Walker, Zach Petty, and me, Aaron Myler, we've got weather coverage you can count on. 7 News, working.
Imagine yourself in a Toyota, like a new 21 Highlander or the all-new 21 Sienna, both with $1,500 cash back. Or check out a new 21 RAV4 and take up the $1,250 cash back. Or a new 21 Camry with up to $1,750 cash back. Visit buyatoyota.com for more deals, local inventory, and to find a dealer near you. You can take cash back or apply toward down payment. Offers vary for hybrid models and exclude TRD models. See your dealer for details. Ready, set, go get your Toyota today. Offers end March 31st. Toyota.
In a hurry and need to see a doctor? The Woodsdale Health Center and Walk-In Clinic is located across from Little Caesars on National Road. Open 7 to 7 Monday through Friday. Patients can receive primary care, treatment of minor illnesses and injuries, wellness visits and physicals. There's also a lab draw station open from 8 to noon weekdays. A division of Wheeling Hospital, the Woodsdale Health Center is led by family physician Dr. Michael Wilson. Call 304-234-1971. They'll take good care of you.
Did you know that 3 Ohioans are diagnosed with oral cancer every day? Dentists are doctors of dental surgery and can recognize life-threatening conditions and treat oral diseases before they become serious health complications. Ohio Dental Association member dentists are located throughout the state and are dedicated to providing the highest quality dental care. Ask if your dentist is a member of the Ohio Dental Association and American Dental Association, so you know you're being treated by the best. To find an ODA dentist in your area, visit associationsadvanceohio.com.
Now's the time to finish what you started by completing your degree at Ohio Dominican University.
It's not easy to always get to the finish line, but the only way you're gonna get is you gotta keep moving. Just kept putting one foot in front of the other. There was no quit. I was not gonna give up.
Pursue your bachelor's degree in high-demand fields such as business, risk management, and more. Classes start soon. Get started at ohiodominican.edu/adult.
This guy knows so much about sports. They based the Sports Almanac from Back to the Future off of his dream journal. He's Bill DeFabio, weekdays noon to 2, on the Valley's only network dedicated to live and local talk radio, The Watchdog.
Text us or call us with questions or comments. Your Wheeling No Two Ways About It continues on The Watchdog.
Alrighty, welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Your Wheeling No Two Ways About It here on The Watchdog with Mayor Glenn Elliott, Vice Mayor Chad Fallman. This is our weekly show to discuss all things Wheeling, and who better to do that with than City Manager Bob Herron. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Great, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. There's just so much, a lot of things going on infrastructure-wise across the city, either now or contemplated. We figured it'd probably be good to have you come on and just kind of give folks an update of what is going on now in terms of where we are, in terms of especially things like the I-70s project, because I know you talk to DOH a lot more than I do, but also in terms of the sewer work that's coming up, downtown work, the streetscape work, the different paving and demolition projects we have working on. So we just thought, in any particular order, I don't know what you want to start with, but we should just go over, give folks an idea what's coming.
Well, we currently have 2 major construction projects underway that are city funded. One is the Badillion area sewer separation project. That's been underway for several months now. It's about 50% complete. Very complicated, multifaceted project that is beginning the process of dealing with storm sewer runoff in the Edgington Lane, Edgewood neighborhood. So we're excited about that. So far, it's gone very well. No change orders. It's on schedule, on budget. So we're pleased with that. And then just a couple of days ago, the water main replacement project in downtown Wheeling began. We're only 2.5 days into that, so it's a little early. But that's a $5 million project that not only replaces a 20-inch water main that was installed in 1886, but it also deals with services to buildings in downtown Wheeling that currently have lead services to them, so we're eliminating all of those. We're also looking at vacant areas, parking lots, vacant lots that have potential for development in the future, and we're planning ahead for that to put both fire service and water service lines to those lots in the event that development occurs there. And then, just generally, it's a project that's long overdue, and because of the streetscape project, we felt now was the time to pull the trigger, and City Council agreed with that and allocated the funds. As the mayor knows, we had a bond sale on that, and so that project is beginning. It is going to take some time. I don't know that it'll take an entire year, but that's what's the schedule, what it's scheduled for. But it is going to go up Main Street, Market Street, and 16th Street up to Oak Street. So it's a big project, and we're excited to get it started and get it done.
And the 1886 water line's been talked about for many years as something the city probably should do, but it had never been an urgent thing. But this was just a chance in advance of the streetscape. The last thing you want to do is to do the new streetscape and then be tearing everything up. And this is the time to do it.
Yeah. The fact that line was installed in 1886, it's still a functioning line. What helped was that it is under trolley tracks, and anytime that line breaks and you see an excavation of the line, you'll see the trolley tracks. That's helped keep that water main intact for many years. And then several years ago, the city went through a process of replacing the valves so that in the event of a break, we could shut the main down in the downtown quicker, and that has worked. But when that water main breaks, it does a lot of damage. It's a big main for one thing, and it's under high pressure. So to ensure the integrity of the streetscape, and obviously that line is well beyond what would be normally considered a useful life, we felt it was appropriate to recommend that it be replaced, and as I mentioned, City Council agreed.
And one of the things I do like is one of the impediments to sort of redevelopment downtown is the cost of adding a sprinkler system, whatever, tap fee and all that. So I like the idea of, preparing vacant lots and also giving existing building owners downtown the opportunity to upgrade their water service right now, basically at cost, as opposed to the cost of tearing up the sidewalk and doing the tap separately. That's going to be a nice incentive for a lot of folks to take advantage of. I agree. We're excited about that, and I think one of the things that people need to realize is that over the next couple of years, it's going to be very disruptive in the downtown. But the project from our water line to the ultimate streetscape project is really a complete streets project. It not only deals with the water line issue. You recall that we did a lining of the sanitary sewer in Market Street this year. That's been done. That was done in advance of the streetscape project. And then the streetscape project itself will include a very important stormwater management component, which a lot of people won't see or realize other than the bioswales that will be placed in there, as well as the signalization and sidewalk improvements. Vaults are going to be dealt with. I mean, so it's a complete project that is long overdue, but will serve the downtown for many generations to come. And Bob, you're probably the only person who's been involved in the streetscape project, aside from some folks at DOH at the low levels, but you're probably the only person who's been involved at a high level in this project since its inception, because really it began with then Governor Tomlin, and then Mayor McKenzie, and then a sort of health plan CEO Jim Pennington, really back in 2015, right? Yes, that's correct. Yes. And how's that project grown? It was really going to be one or two blocks of the downtown, and then it's kind of expanded into, a much bigger project. Well, yeah, the project started out as a $2.6 million mill and fill project for Main and Market Street. And then the health plan, part of the health plan recruitment was that the CEO was concerned about sidewalks, and particularly in the block between 12th and 11th Street. And part of the
incentive program for the city to attract the health plan was that we would deal with sidewalks in that block and on Main and Market. So it was a very defined area. And then we determined that it would be worth our while to discuss redoing all the sidewalks in downtown Wheeling with the Department of Transportation. That added, so we went from 2.6 million and that added another 3.5 to 3.8 million. And that's what we thought we had as a project. And then the Department of Transportation came in and said if we're going to change the sidewalks and make them ADA accessible, we're going to have to change the signals as well. And at that time, that added $2 million to the project. So that's what was presented to City Council as an $8.7 million project. We have a project agreement with the state on that. And then since that time, the cost of signalization has gone to, I think, almost $5 or $6 million to do it right. The sidewalk costs have gone up just a little bit, but we've added vaults in there. We've added the water line project. We've added a significant sewer separation project all along Market Street. And then, of course, the bioswale. So it's gone from really an $8.7 million project to almost 31 or 32 million with the water line included.
It's been a long time in coming, and I know it's taken a lot of work to get here. I've sat in more meetings with other friends at DOH than I'd care to recount, but at the end of the day, the downtown's going to get a once-in-a-generation facelift. And not only in terms of what you see, but in terms of what you don't see. We're going to be prepared for future additional growth with all the underground aspects of infrastructure as well. So, I mean, it's a project that I really think you deserve a lot of credit for kind of being there throughout this project. You're really the only constant with respect to it. It's carried through multiple administrations, both here at the city and the state level. But when it's done, man, it's going to be great. And I can't wait to start seeing the work. I mean, the work begin, as we're already seeing down at 16th and Main today. But it's going to be so great when it's done. Yeah.
Well, I spoke with, this project is actually being administered by the West Virginia Department of Highways. Yeah. And it's going to be locally administered by the District 6 office. And I spoke with the district engineer earlier this week, and they have completed their review of the documents and plans, and they're over 500 pages. And he's hoping that the letting of that will be announced here shortly. So we're still keeping our fingers crossed for summer construction this year, and as of right now, I think we're in line to do that.
Mr. Vice Mayor, you're being quiet here. I didn't want to cut you.
I'm really just enjoying this segment, Bob. I don't know if you heard the first half of the show, but we had a segment called Traffic with Jerry, and now I think we have Infrastructure with Bob.
No, I did not hear that. Sorry, I was walking my son's dog. Sorry about that.
Jerry, Ward 4 Councilman Jerry Slavonakis called in and provided maybe a traffic update. And now we have Infrastructure with Bob.
Okay, great.
Well, there's more infrastructure to talk about, so let's...
With the streetscape project, do we yet know exactly how it's going to be, laid out? I mean, are they going to do Market Street first and then Main Street, or Main Street first and then Market, or are they going to do all the paving first and then the sidewalks? Do we know exactly how that's going to play out?
We do not, other than the first phase or the first component of the true streetscape project will be the sewer separation on Market Street. Just by a logical order that has to be done first. And beyond that, the contractor will have discretion as to how they administer, they'll get a contract for $25 million or whatever it ends up being, and they'll have the ability to administer that contract however they see fit. But that will be made public, and there will be input. But at the end of the day, the contractor will have the freedom to construct the project as he feels is most appropriate.
Do we have a ballpark estimate of what month the streetscape might actually start?
If I were to guess right now, I would say July or August.
Well, one of the other projects we've talked about is the 19th Street project. There's going to be some demolition taking place of that old abandoned warehouse. Roughly, when do you expect that site to be cleared and ready for some sort of potential future development?
Well, as you know, City Council is considering second reading next week of an ordinance to demolish or do asbestos abatement and demolish the building. We already have done probably 80% of the environmental remediation. The only item left as part of this project is hauling some concrete to a facility in New Jersey, which is not going to be that expensive. But at any rate, if City Council approves the ordinance authorizing asbestos abatement and demolition, I would anticipate that that project would begin 30 to 45 days after authorization. I don't know, the demolition will not take all that long. I don't know how long the asbestos abatement will take, but that will be the first thing done. The environmental issues that remain are minor and will not delay the project once it begins.
Bob, do you know if the demolition is going to be, are they going to take the building down slowly, or are there going to be any sort of dynamite or whatever just to implode it, or have they even talked about that yet?
To my knowledge, they have not talked about it, but I don't believe, in looking at the bid documents, there'll be an explosion. I think it'll be a traditional demolition.
So maybe roughly summertime, into the summer, that site would hopefully be cleared.
I think that's a very good guess, yes, or a very good prediction, yes.
Mayor, what else do you have for infrastructure with Bob?
Well, this may step on Councilman Sklavonakis' toes a little bit, but I thought we could talk a little about some of the I-70 work. What your thoughts so far on the work being done by Shank Construction? I personally think they're doing a really good job. What folks can see here coming up in terms of the Fort Henry Bridge relocation, which I guess began yesterday.
Yes, it did.
And, any other sort of unexpected things that folks need to know about?
Well, the project is slightly over 50% completed, and I think that they're on schedule, if not slightly ahead. I think the biggest thing has been with the project from a traffic perspective, and I don't know if Councilman Sklavonakis mentioned this, but I know the mayor and I have talked about it. As the traffic on National Road near Perkins has been kind of an issue. I try to go through there on my way home at least once or twice a week, and it seems to have gotten better. But that's been an issue. But beyond that, they're working very quickly in a very workmanlike manner. We have had a number of people who have received speeding tickets in the construction zone, which, is a little bit more than what I thought, but that occurs on almost a daily basis. But beyond that, I think the project's gone very well, and based on the product that we see on the westbound I-70 bridges there at Fulton, it turned out very well, and it's going to be an excellent project when it's done.
I can see the speeding because it's so hard to go 45, even though the signs are clearly marked everywhere, all the way from Elm Grove all the way to the island. But it's just so, you're driving on the interstate, and then if your foot just kind of pushes up, down a little bit, and you're going faster than 45, and so I can understand it. But folks do need to be mindful that these are active work construction sites, and the speed limit is 45 for a good reason. When do you expect this project to be? When do you expect the Fulton Bridge eastbound to be finished?
Well, it was closed for 9 months, and I believe it was closed on December 1st.
I'd have to go back and think, but yeah.
Yeah, and then now the trail is closed right now, and it will be reopened in May for what would have been the bicycle marathon that we have, or the bicycle event that we have. But as far as I know, they're still on schedule for a 9-month closure.
All right, so we can be I'm personally very, very proud of the way the city's actually handled this. I know some folks were nervous about it. We had some traffic issues early on last year in North Wheeling. I know we did what we could to address those. We've had some issues around Perkins, but all in all, I think the city has really accommodated the traffic congestion better than I thought we would. So, I knock on wood that we get through this project with no more issues. In terms of city paving projects, we've done a lot here over the last 4.5 years that I've been on council. I think the vice mayor is correct in saying if you look at all the paving this council and the prior one's done, it's probably more than any other 4-year period. Where are we in terms of, we still have some projects left over from last year's paving, or are we up to speed?
We do. We have all the CDBG paving yet to be done, and the reason for that was because of COVID, HUD was late in getting their grant agreements out. So we now have those, and that money is set aside, and we do have it under contract. And then we have about 150 to 200,000 left of the general fund funds, streets yet to be done, and that'll be done first thing this spring.
And Bob, I think we still had some demolition that needed to be done, mostly Ward 2, I'm thinking, which would be North Wheeling in the island.
Yes, actually, today I signed off on asbestos abatement inspections on 23 properties, which are the next phase of the demolition. So that usually takes 2 to 3 weeks to get the inspections done, the reports back, after which we can put those projects out to bid.
All right, what else do you have, Mr. Vice Mayor?
Well, I don't know if I have any more infrastructure with Bob-type comments, but, and I'm not the biggest sports fan, but Mayor, I know you're a Steelers fan, and Bob, you're a Browns fan.
We don't need to talk about this.
What's going to happen, with next season? I mean, who's going to win here? Steelers, Browns, I mean...
Well,
who's going to have bragging rights between the two of you?
Towards the end of the season, I think the Browns made a statement to the Steelers, and and the mayor and I have talked about this, and he knows that he's in for 4 or 5 years of misery, and it's the exact opposite for the Browns.
Well, I will say this: the NFL is a quarterback-driven league, and if you have a franchise quarterback, you can always compete. If you don't, you're going to struggle. And as a Steelers fan, I remember the 1980s very, very well. We went through 7 or 8 quarterbacks that never. And not one of them was going to be mentioned in any conversation of the best quarterbacks ever, right? David Woodley, Cliff Stout, Mark Malone, all these guys are just, were very average quarterbacks. And the Steelers, even though they still had a Hall of Fame coach and a lot of good defensive players, were never really that good.
You forgot Bubby Brister.
Bubby Brister, yeah. And even with Neil O'Donnell, we did make it to a Super Bowl, but he threw a couple second half interceptions. So, you don't, without a franchise quarterback, it's very hard to win Super Bowls, and only a few teams have done it. And if you look over the since Brady's been in the league, he's won about half the Super Bowls, but even if you look during that time period, you have a lot of future Hall of Fame quarterbacks winning Super Bowls. So I think we got one more year with Ben, it looks like. That gives us a chance, and we'll see.
For what it's worth, I still consider him an elite quarterback.
He is an elite quarterback. He's 38, and, he's not what he used to be in terms of his scrambling ability, but he can still make any throw, and as long as we can keep him standing upright, I think we'll compete. Our defense, is still pretty good. Our offense really kind of faltered at the end of the year. We had no running game, and, I think that's something that'll be addressed this year in the draft. But the Browns are definitely an ascendant team. I'm still not sold on Baker Mayfield being elite. I think he's good, but we'll see. We'll see. Mr. Vice President, you wanted to start this conversation. You got to throw something into it, too.
Oh, no. I started off by saying that I'm not the biggest sports fan. You guys are much bigger sports fans than I am.
I'm a big Steelers fan. I'm not an overall big sports fan anymore. But
so, Mayor, you're claiming right now on the radio that you're going to have bragging rights for one more year.
I said the Steelers will compete if they can keep Ben healthy.
Wait, one more year? Well, he didn't have them last year.
Last year was a
good catch, Bob. Good point.
Last year was a painful year. Losing in the playoffs always hurts. Losing to a division foe hurts even more. And I'm not going to. And the way that game started, I knew at 10 minutes in it was going to be a long night. And, I could have gone to bed after halftime, and I don't think I would have missed any opportunity to cheer. But anytime your first play up from scrimmage is the center snapping the ball over your quarterback's head and a touchdown for the opponent's team, it's probably going to be a long night. And, it went down from there.
Well, good teams can recover from that.
In case you can't tell, Bob has been a suffering Browns fan for a long time. And when you have a year like this past one, you got to be happy. And, I actually don't hate the Browns. I hate the Ravens, I'll be honest. I've always hated the Ravens. The Bengals, I seem to play dirty sometimes, so I never liked them either. But I really don't. I respect the Browns as an organization. And if any team, not named the Steelers in that division, is going to do well, I prefer it be the Browns, not the Ravens or the Bengals. So I'll say that. That's my only attempt at some peace on that front. Before we go, though, one more thing I want to mention. This is really, you're for all intents and purposes, the CEO of the city's employees. We had, the newspaper did a story about Spike Wells, who's been with the city forever, since 2005, never missed a day of work. Really nice story. Anything you say about Spike, I don't know if he's listening or not. He's probably working, not listening right now. But
Absolutely. When I first came, Spike was part-time, and it didn't take long to notice his work ethic, and it's like, we've got to get this guy on full-time, and we did that, converted him to full-time. And he's a very, very good city employee, public employee, and takes a lot of pride in his work. He's very compassionate about his work. He's very loyal to the city. And we've taken advantage is not the right term, but we've recognized his skills, and now we've moved him over to helping out at OVMC, which has been very, very helpful. I was down to Center Market on a Saturday afternoon several weeks ago, and it just struck me on how clean it was, and it just how well it looked. I texted Kurt Zendi at the time, and a lot of that has to do with Spike, and he's just a very good city employee, and I'm very proud of the progress that he's made.
Bob, and our show's about to wind down, but I don't think we've received any update on the suspension bridge. Is there any new progress on that?
You know what, when I spoke with Mr. Clark this week, I asked him about that, and he did not have an update on it, that he's trying to get me one. So I did ask that question, and even he didn't know what was going on. That project is being handled in Charleston, and we have good friends at the District 6 office. We work very well with them, but a whole different topic, a whole different show is the dysfunctionality of the West Virginia Department of Highways and Communication. So, but he is checking on it for us.
All righty, well, hey, we wrapped it up. We had traffic with Jerry, we had infrastructure with Bob. I think our show continues to evolve here on The Watchdog, but you've been listening to Your Wheeling No Two Ways About It with Mayor Glenn Elliott, Vice Mayor Chad Thom, and we'll see you next week on The Watchdog. Thank you.